All right, everybody, what is going on? Good afternoon. Reminder that I'm going to be doing a guest appearance on a football podcast later today. I will be restreaming it to this channel, though, so as long as you stay on this channel, just look for a stream to go up around 3 o'clock. And I'm going to be on this podcast for I don't know exactly how long, but we're going to be talking about the Super Bowl. So definitely tune in for that. Hawk's Nest stream is going to be tomorrow at noon. And I'm going to be doing a second podcast appearance tomorrow at, I believe, 3. So definitely try to tune in for all that. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about something that I've been asked to talk about by quite a few people now. And I think it makes sense to go ahead and make a video now. So I know this isn't about the Super Bowl, but let's talk about potential replacements for Klint Kubiak after he leaves this offseason to go coach the Raiders. All right, everybody, before we go any further into this video, I want to take a minute to tell you guys about the Sleeper app. We are just about to the Super Bowl. Now would be a great time to get on Sleeper. It's a one-stop shop for all your sports needs. Celebrate and chat about sports in real time with other users. You can get scores, you can get news, you get alerts with blazing fast speed, all kinds of sports stuff. You can play in fantasy leagues and win real money on picks contests. Enjoy sports together with a community. Download the Sleeper app today. And when you do, use promo code SBN for up to $100 match on your first deposit. And also utilize the free $20 entry with no deposit required. All you have to do is make an account for that one. Terms and conditions do apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states and growing. So check out Sleeper and have some fun with sports this year. So, first of all, let me say I don't work for the team. Me taking time to talk about likely offensive coordinator hires for the Seahawks this offseason is not doing anything to distract the team from the game. So, just understand that, okay? We can talk about whatever we want to talk about, but the team, it's their job to remain focused on what's going on here. So, that's number one. Number two, if you read my Seahawks on SI articles, you've already seen almost everything that I'm going to talk about in this video. So just understand that. I did write an article about this stuff a couple of days ago. Nothing's really changed since then, but I thought I'd do it in video form as well because I know a lot of people do not read my Seahawks on SI stuff. So let's go ahead and do a video just talking through some guys that I think are going to come up this off season. So we're gonna go kind of in rough order from the guys that I like that I really don't like to the guys that I like. And understand this is all subjective. I don't think anybody else is required or obligated to feel the same way that I feel. But I'm gonna try to talk this through. I'm gonna try to explain why I feel the way that I feel about these guys. Starting with Ken Dorsey, he was kind of the least appealing of the candidates that crossed my mind when I was thinking about this. So Ken Dorsey, former Miami Hurricane quarterback, was a player in the NFL for a little bit, became the offensive coordinator in Buffalo after spending some time on the Panthers coaching staff, and then he came up in Buffalo, helped bring Josh Allen along, and at first things were going really well, but um, midway through his second season, the Bills actually fired him and promoted Joe Brady, and things got better with Joe Brady. So, a little bit hard to get excited about that. He went to the Browns in 2024 and was the OC of the worst offense in football. And then last year, he was the passing game specialist for the Dallas Cowboys, and he did very well. Cowboys had a great passing attack, but I struggle with this one. I don't think there's a lot here to really get into. And this is going to be something I come back to a lot as we move through this offseason. It's not enough to just get a good play caller. And what I mean by that is there are a lot of coordinators, there are a lot of coaches out there that run the kind of offense that Ken Dorsey runs. You could call it the RPO offense. But think about the offense the Buffalo Bills run with Josh Allen. It's nothing like the offense we run right now. And it's not really the kind of offense that I think this personnel is going to have success with, right? There's a lot more shotgun. There's a lot more RPO with the quarterback. You put way more on the quarterback. You're not playing under center very much. That's the Ken Dorsey offense that had success in Buffalo, and it made sense why that was happening, right? That made sense. He had Josh Allen. We don't have Josh Allen. We have Sam Darnold. So Ken Dorsey's style of offense also just doesn't fit. So to me, that's kind of the worst one. And I know this is going to be controversial, but not too far behind him, ahead of him, would be Cliff Kingsbury. Not because I think Kingsbury is some terrible football mind. I do think that he has shown that he can be good. He was a mildly competent head coach, did well with Washington in 2024, and there were a lot of injuries last year. They dismissed him controversially. But think about it. Do you want to run the spread with this offense? Do you want to run the spread with Sam Darnold and JSN, Cooper Kupp, hopefully Rashid Shaheed, and Jake Bobo? Do you want to run four receiver sets all day? Do you want to let your tight ends basically just rot on the bench? Do you want to throw the ball 70% of the time? If the things I'm saying sound familiar, it's because it's kind of not that different than Ryan Grubb. Like Cliff Kingsbury, I think that he's good at the spread stuff, but I don't need to bring back the Ryan Grubb thing. And I think Kingsbury might even lean a little bit harder into that stuff than Ryan Grubb did. We need a guy who can run the ball, hit play action, and play from under center. That's not Kingsbury. So I know these guys are good at what they do, but what they do is not really what will work for this group of personnel. Next guy that I think is worth mentioning is Greg Roman. Greg Roman's been around a long time. He's been calling plays in this league for quite a while. He was the OC in San Francisco under Harbaugh. He was the OC for a couple not very good years in Buffalo, although not terrible years, if we're being honest. He had a lot of success with Lamar Jackson in Baltimore. And then the last 2 years, he was under Harbaugh in Los Angeles with the Chargers, but things didn't quite click, and he ended up getting let go this offseason. Now, Greg Roman does like to run the ball, and I like that, but I think his running is a little bit more gap. I want a guy who's a little more zone. And when I look at Roman, what I think of when I see Greg Roman is a play caller that works very well with a mobile, scrambling, dual threat quarterback. Sam Darnold's not that. So I don't hate Greg Roman. If we still had Russell Wilson or if our quarterback was Jalen Milroe, I might be interested in Roman. But with Darnold, I don't know. It's not like he's never had a pocket quarterback before. But even Justin Herbert has more wheels than Sam Darnold, I think. So I'm not super into that one. Now I want to get into the in-house guys because I know these guys are going to come up a lot this offseason. And it's really four different guys. Jake Peetz is the most likely guy to be worth talking about in this capacity. He's been around for a while, but he's never been an NFL offensive coordinator. He worked under Nick Saban at Alabama. He was with the Raiders for a while. He was with the Redskins back when they had all those great coaches, I think, in 2014. And then he was with the Panthers. He came up under McVay for a couple years, and then he's been with the Seahawks since 2024. So he's got a nice little resume, but his only year of being an offensive coordinator is LSU 2021, which was not a very good year. That LSU offense ranked like 80th in the country out of 130 teams. Not very good. And all we've seen from him since is he's kind of carrying the clipboard for Sean McVay, and he's been the passing game coordinator the last 2 years, which there's some good results there, but there are also some not so great results there. And I just struggle with stuff like this because we've never seen them call plays before, so who knows? The resume is nice, right? Like how many guys out there worked under Sean McVay and Nick Saban? I know some people are going to bring that up, but I don't know. Or how confident are you that this guy's picked up a bunch of stuff from Kubiak and McVay? It's not that simple. Like, to me, this would be kind of like the Shane Waldron thing. And I'm a different kind of cat. I didn't hate Shane Waldron. I don't think Shane Waldron was nearly as bad as some people act like he is, but it didn't work. We had 3 years. 1 year was good. The other 2 years were average, and then he was gone. So it's a mystery box. Justin Justin Outen, kind of the same thing here. He was the offensive coordinator with the Broncos. I think he was under Nathaniel Hackett that 1 year they had Russell Wilson where they had the worst offense in football. And I think Outen got to call plays for a few weeks there, but he didn't do well. Nobody did well with that team though. That this was the year where Hackett was calling plays, and then Kubiak called plays, and then I think Outen called plays for a little bit, and everything was just a complete train wreck. So you don't really have a lot to go on here. It's a mystery box. Like, okay, he was a tight end coach for Green Bay under LaFleur, and then he went with Hackett to Denver. Then he spent a couple years rebuilding his reputation with the Titans a little bit on two pretty bad offenses. And now he's been here as a run game specialist and assistant offensive line coach. Who knows? Who knows if he can do it? I think he called plays for a couple games in Denver, and that's it. Another in-house guy would be Andrew Janocko. He's the quarterback coach for or Janocko, excuse me, quarterback coach for the Seahawks. He's another guy who came over with Kubiak. Now, the interesting thing here is that if you don't give him the offensive coordinator job, he's probably going to go with Kubiak to Vegas because he came here with Kubiak. He'd probably leave with Kubiak. That's how these things go. So if you want to keep him, you probably have to give him the job. Is that a good enough reason to give him the job? I don't know. He was the quarterback coach for the Saints last year when they had Derek Carr, and then he got hurt. Quarterback coach for 2 years with the Bears. I think that was Justin Fields. Quarterback coach with the Vikings when they had Kirk Cousins. Never been an offensive coordinator at any level. It doesn't look like, right? So who knows if he can call plays? It's a mystery box. I guess it would be okay, but some guys are just meant to be quarterback coaches, and it's not like his resume as a quarterback coach is sterling. This year is his first big success, right? Having great things happen with Sam Darnold. So who knows? John Benton. This is kind of the same thing as Janocko, right? John Benton, if you don't promote him, he's probably going to leave with Kubiak to go to Vegas. He's a guy who could be the OC in Vegas under Kubiak if you don't give Benton the promotion. It's at least possible. And this is a guy who's been around forever, but he's always been an offensive line coach. One time he was a run game coordinator, but this guy's always been an offensive line guy. And I guess you can trust those guys to run the ball, but again, there's not much here that you can go on faithfully, right? I guess he's a Shanahan guy because he was under Shanahan for several years in Frisco, but is that enough? I wish I had more to say about these guys, and I maybe I could if I made dedicated videos to them, and I will eventually at some point, but I gotta ask, how can any of us know from the outside looking in? How can we know if John Benton's a good play caller when he's never done it? I'm just not really into the in-house hires, guys. No disrespect to a guy like Jake Peets, but I want to try to do a little bit better. I want to try to get somebody cultivated specifically for this team in this moment, and I don't know if that guy exists on this staff. And I feel like there's a little bit of laziness implied in promoting somebody from in-house here because you're basically going, well, okay, you're in the room, so you're the next guy up. I want to try to do a little bit better than that. If I'm going to promote in-house with one of these four guys, Peets, Outen, Janocko, Benton, then I better, for one reason or another, have full confidence that that guy learned a ton from Kubiak. Because I want to say it again, we need to run the Kubiak offense, or at least something very similar. I don't want to see this team try to run the spread or do a lot of RPOs with their current personnel. Hank Fraley is a guy that we pretty seriously looked at last season. He's the offensive line coach for the Lions. And last year, I think he became the run game coordinator. We thought about giving him the job last year, didn't work out. He went back to Detroit, which makes sense. Here's my thing though. Even the Lions didn't make him the offensive coordinator. They gave it to some guy they ended up canning within like 2.5 months. And Fraley just stayed as the offensive line coach and run game coordinator. So even they don't think he has it. And if they don't think he has it, because the guy they ended up getting to replace Ben Johnson, like I said, he got basically pushed out immediately because he wasn't very good, then that tells me he's probably not got it. If they don't think he has it, and he's been there since 2018, he's been there for a while now. They don't think he has it. Why would I think he has it? So that's all I can really go on, but I'm not super into this one. Nathan Scheelhaus. So that's quite a name. Nathan Scheelhaus. This is kind of the next young wonder kid in the NFL. This is kind of your next Sean McVay, and it's not a coincidence that he spent the last 2 years under McVay, offensive assistant and passing game specialist, passing game coordinator this last year. Everybody is looking at Scheelhaus as like, that could be the guy you get when he's very young, and then he just takes off and becomes a super genius for the next 30, 40 years. So Scheelhaus, this is kind of like a Waldron type hire. And I know me saying that is going to scare people off, but understand that this guy's very well respected around the league, and it's thought that he is going to be something very special. The thing is, it could take a while. I'm sorry to have to keep pointing this out, but he has not called plays in the NFL before. He was the offensive coordinator at Iowa State in 2023, and quarterback coach as well. But in the NFL, he has never called plays. Even when McVay gives play calling to somebody else over the last couple of years, it's been LaFleur, not Scheelhaus. So there's a lot to like here. This is kind of the guy that you could catch lightning in a bottle with, and he could just explode and be amazing. But it's a risk. It is a risk that you might not want to be taking right now. Next up is Brian Callahan. You're going to have to give this guy a lot of indulgences for what happened in Tennessee. He was the head coach for the Titans for 23 games before getting fired, and it went terribly. He got the number 1 pick, got Cam Ward, and continued to have one of the worst teams in football in 2025. So clearly he cannot be a head coach in this league. Disastrous results. And he was the OC in Cincinnati for 5 years, but he has never called plays. So you might be tempted to give him a lot of credit for the Bengals making the Super Bowl and making the AFC Championship game the next year, but don't do it. Zach Taylor calls the plays in Cincinnati, not Callahan. I do think that Callahan needs to get an opportunity to call plays for a good team at some point, because he did call plays in Tennessee, I believe. But obviously the results are so bad, I don't think anybody's going to give him credit for that. But this intrigues me. Callahan was a hot prospect as a head coach a couple years ago. He got put into an impossible situation in Tennessee, although there was some incompetence that kind of went beyond just, oh, the players are no good, the roster's no good, whatever. So I get it, but at the same time, Callahan, like Kubiak before him, comes from some really good football stock. And if you get Brian Callahan, he might bring his dad along, Bill Callahan. Bill Callahan might be the greatest offensive line coach in the history of the NFL. And that's not hyperbole. Bill Callahan is an all-timer. So you get Brian, you get his dad Bill, that's going to help a little bit, and you give him a chance to call plays with a real team. It's a little bit of a mystery box, but at least you know he has a year and a half of experience of learning mostly what not to do. I don't hate it. I do wonder if maybe he'll be a little too pass happy, because that's kind of what the mentality was in Cincinnati. But I don't hate the idea. You got Klint Kubiak here, which would be the most amusing outcome here, because we are talking about the younger brother of Klint Kubiak, but not a lot of experience here. He was a quarterback coach for a couple years in San Fran, passing game specialist. Last year, he's the offensive coordinator. Obviously, Kyle Shanahan is the play caller in San Fran, though. So San Francisco had a pretty good offense last year, 10th in points with a ton of injuries. They were a good passing attack in 2024 until everybody got hurt. You could give him a little bit of credit for grooming Brock Purdy, I guess, but he doesn't call plays. So it's a mystery box. And even beyond just that fact, unlike somebody like a John Benton, look at how little experience he has. This is so little, it's almost goofy to suggest he should already get play calling responsibilities, but I mean, he comes from good football stock, so I don't hate the idea, and it's a roll of the dice, but it's one that I understand. Still not my favorite, but it would be amusing, right? If we replaced Klint with Clay, it'd be pretty funny, and there's something to be said for that. All right. Now this is kind of a rough top five. These are the guys that I really like. These are the guys that would kind of get me excited on some level. Wes Phillips. This is Wade Phillips's son, which means his grandfather is Bum Phillips. So tremendous football stock here. He's been the offensive coordinator with the Vikings for the last 4 seasons under Kevin O'Connell. So he is kind of sort of a McVay guy. He comes from the Rams back when O'Connell was the offensive coordinator there, and he's good. Or at the very least, the results he's produced have been pretty good, right? The Vikings have been good offensively twice since he's been there. They've been bad twice since he got there. It just kind of depends on who the quarterback is. But you can see that he's got a pretty good resume. Tight ends coach with the Rams under McVay and O'Connell. And then that last year, he gets the bump to passing game coordinator, and then he becomes the full on OC in Minnesota. But again, not calling plays. So can he do it? Who knows? But this is a guy who's been around long enough. This guy was the offensive assistant for the Cowboys early in Tony Romo's career under his dad. That's how long he's been around. So this guy deserves an opportunity to call plays. And I like the stock. I like the idea. I just don't know if I want to take the risk on somebody like this right now. That's the question. Grant Udinsky, kind of in the same boat as somebody like a Shieldhouse to me, but Udinsky does a little bit more for me. I really like that offense. The issue is he only had 1 year of it. And again, he doesn't call plays. Liam Cohen calls plays in Jacksonville, but he was also under Kevin O'Connell for 3 years with Minnesota and did some good work there and was able to get promoted all the way up to OC with Jacksonville. This guy hasn't or has just now turned 30. If you get him and he's good, obviously he'll get stolen away as a head coach, but this could be a very, very good coordinator or head coach in this league for a long time. And I really like the offense that Liam Cohen runs. And I think that combined with whatever he was able to pick up from O'Connell for 3 years could make something really good. But again, it's just one of those things where it's like, with this little amount of experience, are you really going to hitch your wagon to him? It's a little like Klint Kubiak. But at least you know that Klint Kubiak comes from the Shanahan tree, right? He has to. He comes from the Shanahan Kubiak tree. Literally, he comes from the Kubiak tree. But with the Udinsky thing, the thing that intrigues me here is the combination of the Liam Cohen offense and the Vikings, Kevin O'Connell stuff. And remember, Grant Udinsky was the coach for Sam Darnold in 2024, so there is a little bit of a relationship there. And he was the assistant offensive coordinator there for a year as well, even though he didn't call plays anyway. Next guy for me would be Adam Stenavich. This guy needs to get a shot calling plays at some point. He's kind of like Wes Phillips to me. The thing is, Green Bay's offense hasn't really taken off the way people expected. So I think that there's been a little bit of shine off the apple at this point. But it's time for this guy to get an opportunity to call plays somewhere, and he's not going to get to do it under LaFleur. He was under Shanahan for 2 years in Frisco, and then he went with LaFleur to Green Bay, and he's been under LaFleur ever since. He was the offensive line coach for a few years, run game coordinator, and then he's been the OC for the last 4 years. This is the kind of offense you want to run. You would hope that something was impressed on him over the last several years in San Fran and Green Bay under the right kind of coach. I will admit the fact that Green Bay's offense didn't really take off this last year kind of hurts them. It looked like they were going to launch into the stratosphere. Did not happen. But yeah, I think you still got to consider giving him a shot at some point. There's good stuff on this resume, and people have been talking about him getting an opportunity at some point a lot in recent years. Just haven't heard it as much this offseason. And then we got Frank Smith. Okay, Frank Smith, this is a guy that I talked about a lot a couple years ago. I even kind of liked him as a potential head coaching hire when we fired Carroll. That didn't happen, obviously. And Frank Smith is not in the greatest place right now. I think he's currently working for the Vikings in a reduced role from offensive coordinator because obviously the McDaniel coaching staff got blown up in Miami. But he was the OC for 4 years at Miami, produced one phenomenal year of offense, one above average one, and then two pretty bad ones. But think about what he had to work with there. Think about who the players were. Think about the fact that he had an okay quarterback, not an elite quarterback. And also consider the fact that it's the right kind of offense, right? It's the right kind of offense. It's that Shanahan outside zone running scheme stuff. It's the Mike McDaniel exotic, fun, and ultimately very, very explosive. And I think the best possible run scheme you can have in modern football. You give that guy Ken Walker, he's going to do some great stuff. Now, again, he's never called plays before, but he's been around, right? He started in the NFL in 2010 for the Saints team right after they won the Super Bowl, and he's been working in the NFL for 15 years. Offensive coordinator the last 4 years, tight end coach, assistant offensive line coach. He's been around. And I think that you take a look at what he may have learned from McDaniel and you just hope. But again, not a play caller, never been a play caller before, but that goes for most of these guys, right? So I admit, most people we've talked about in this video are mystery boxes, but that's just the nature of this stuff. A lot of these guys, they haven't called plays before. And a lot of the guys who have called plays before weren't very good at it. That's why they're available, which is why this last guy, to me, is the only home run you can hit and why I saved him for last. I know a lot of people don't like him, but you're going to have to hear me out here. Arthur Smith, this is the home run ball. If you get Arthur Smith to replace Klint Kubiak, I don't think you're losing a beat. You're going to skip a beat, and you might even get better. Arthur Smith has the right kind of offense. It's not exactly the Shanahan tree, but he runs the ball a lot. He loves play action. These are the things that I want to do with this personnel. I want to play from under center, run the ball, make big plays off of play action, and thrive that way. It's, Shanahan-ish, I guess you could say. There's some Shanahan in there, even though he was, I mean, I think he and LaFleur crossed paths in Tennessee, right? Look, when he was in Tennessee those 2 years in Tennessee as the offensive coordinator and play caller, he got great stuff going. Ryan Tannehill rebuilt his career. Derrick Henry, people don't remember this. Derrick Henry was not a great player at first. Derrick Henry really blossomed under Arthur Smith in Tennessee. He had the number 4 offense in 2020, and he had good players. He didn't have an all-pro team. Yeah, he couldn't figure it out in Atlanta. He's maybe not meant to be a head coach. That's okay. We don't need him to be a head coach. And who did he have to work with there? Desmond Ridder and Marcus Mariota. Pittsburgh, kind of mediocre. 2 years of mediocre offense in Pittsburgh. What did he have to work with? Washed up Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, and mostly washed up Aaron Rodgers. You're not going to have success in those situations. So I don't know what you people expect, but you're not going to get good results when you can't find a competent quarterback. Sam Darnold will be, by I think, a pretty decent margin, the best quarterback that he's ever had to work with if he comes to work here. Now, he's been hired by Ohio State, but I'm sure you can get him out of that contract. If he's signed it, there's some people saying he hasn't signed it yet, but even if he has, it doesn't matter. If you offer him the OC job and play calling with the Seahawks, coming off either a Super Bowl appearance or a Super Bowl win, he will leave that Ohio State contract in the dust. That maybe there's a buyout, but Seattle can pay that buyout easily. It's not going to be huge. It's not going to be prohibitive. And most of these guys have NFL clauses in their contract because they'd rather coach in the NFL. So Arthur Smith, he's got it all. He's got the play calling experience. He's got success in his past, and he's got the right kind of offense for this Seahawks personnel. He gets it. and he can win with the players we have. All right. Half-hour long video, way longer than I usually like it, but had to get through a lot of stuff. See you guys later. Go Hawks. Everyone have a good rest of your day.